Black Tom, the day the Statue of Liberty trembled. I woke up in the early hours of the morning terrified. My sturdy brick house was shaking. The bed swayed. The windows rattled. I ran to a window facing south. The distant skyscrapers stood black against a sky that seemed entirely on fire. My mind jumped to the explanation. Someone had blown up Black Tom. Black Tom. That was the name of the small island in New York Bay, just across from Liberty Island. It was said to be named after a black man, a certain Tom, the only inhabitant of the islet in times long past. He lived alone, his story lost in the mist of time. All that remained was the name, Black Tom. Over the years, the island ceased to be an island. In 1880, the construction of a bridge and a railway line connected it to the mainland. It was no longer an island, but a rapidly growing peninsula. By 1905, the National Dock and Storage Company had built warehouses, piers, and depots that turned it into one of the busiest logistical centers in the northeastern United States. In 1914, the First World War broke out. Europe split into two opposing sides: the Triple Entente, Britain, France, and Russia, and the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The United States, officially neutral, claimed to stay out of it. But on the docks, neutrality was just a disguise. The naval blockade imposed by the Allies prevented trade with the Central Powers. All American weapons, ammunition, and supplies had a single destination: London and Paris. And Black Tom was the departure point. By July 1916, Black Tom was quite literally a powder keg. Over 1,000 tons of ammunition, 45 tons of TNT, all stored in the open air, ready to be shipped to Europe. The port of Manhattan buzzed with activity. My feet crunched on glass. The explosions had shattered every window. To the south, geysers of fire rose from the water. Burning barges floated adrift. A nauseating smell of burned chemicals filled the air. At 1:08 a.m., the first explosion, a barge. Half an hour later, the fire reached the rest. And then the big one. At 2:12 a.m., the main warehouse blew up. The blast wave was felt more than 40 kilometers away. Chunks of steel struck the Statue of Liberty. The arm and the torch were damaged. Since that day, access to the arm has remained closed to the public. Because when the symbol of liberty is struck, it's not just metal that breaks. At first, it was called an accident. 2 guards were arrested, suspected of starting the fires. But soon the clues led to a name: Michael Kristof, a Slovak immigrant and former U.S. soldier, who admitted ties to German intelligence. Through the German embassy, a network of saboteurs had introduced simple but effective explosives, like the pencil bomb, attributed to Captain Franz von Rintelen. All evidence pointed to the German Empire being behind the attack. But it was an election year. President Woodrow Wilson was seeking re-election. Admitting sabotage meant admitting a security failure and losing control of the narrative. So the event was downplayed. Numbers were hidden. The tone was lowered. Little was said, but actions were taken. That attack served as a covert justification to prepare America's entry into the war, and Wilson was re-elected. Officially, 7 people died, among them a police officer, a railway chief, a barge captain, and a 2-month-old baby. Hundreds were injured. Material damage exceeded $20 million at the time, around $400 million today. In 1939, an international commission held the German Empire responsible. The compensation was not paid until 1979. Black Tom was not just a covert act of war. It was a crack, a warning of what happens when the fires of vested interests are lit beneath the table of power. An explosion that split the night in two, and one that, more than a century later, still echoes in the silence of the sealed arm of the Statue of Liberty.